If you were looking for high-scoring hockey in the late 70s and mid-80s, you surprisingly may not have to look any further than Los Angeles, California. For 6 seasons, the LA Kings relied on a high-powered top line to generate a majority of their offense. Dubbed the Triple Crown Line, Marcel Dionne, Charles Simmer, and Dave Taylor form one of the greatest lines in hockey history. The legendary trio dominated the NHL, including becoming the first line mates to each score 100 points in a single season. However, by 1984, sniper Charles Simmer requested a trade during a contract dispute with the franchise. After months of searching for a deal, the back-to-back 56-goal man was dealt to the Boston Bruins for a first-round pick, thus breaking up one of the most prolific scoring lines of all time. As luck would have it, also in 1984, as the Kings were dealing with their disgruntled all-star left winger, they'd also unknowingly draft his eventual replacement. And no, I don't mean lefty Tom Glavine. Well, yes, I do mean that Tom Glavine, future Cy Young Award winner, drafted in the 4th round by the Kings. No, the real roster replacement for Simmer would be down, way down, 100 picks later to the 9th round, for Luc Robitaille. Robitaille would not make his debut in LA for another 2 years. However, despite some remaining concerns over his skating ability, the Quebec native would be hugely productive in the QMJHL and show glimpses of what could be possible at the next level. In the meantime, while Luc did his thing in the Q, the Kings experienced a roller coaster ride with head coach Pat Quinn. Quinn would oversee the 1984-85 Kings to their first playoff berth in 2 seasons, while also overseeing the disastrous 85-86 campaign, with the previously high-scoring Kings struggling to find the back of the net, finishing 18th out of 21 teams in scoring. LA sunk to the bottom of the standings. His roller coaster ride would eventually end in a wild exit to Vancouver. Thanks to his nightmare 1985-86 season, the Kings would have the 2nd overall pick in the 1986 draft. Former Kings great, now general manager Roger Vachon, took Michigan native Jimmy Carson. Michigan being notable considering the Detroit Red Wings owned the 1st overall. Having a monster season in the Q and being awarded the Mike Bossy Trophy as the league's best prospect, Jimmy Carson and Luc Robitaille were polar opposites as prospects. However different their hockey journeys were to get to LA, they were about to infuse Hollywood with instant star and firepower. Waiting for Robitaille and Carson at Kings training camp was 2/3 of the famed Triple Crown line, Dave Taylor and Marcel Dionne. Dionne, now 35 years old, took the rookies under his wing off the ice, even inviting fellow French-speaking Luc Robitaille to live with him and his family. Jimmy Carson would often frequent the residence to talk hockey, and was over so often, Mrs. Dionne had a great idea. Bruce Anderson of Sports Illustrated would write, "For Carson, Carol Dionne says, how could we throw him out? He can barely burn toast." Marcel called a neighbor at 10:30 one night and asked, "How would you like to have a hockey player stay with you?" Done. The rookies frequently carpool with Dionne, and the three always have their pregame meal together, Carol's spaghetti with meat sauce, when they play at home. On the ice, as tempting as it would be to slot in left winger Luc Robitaille to replace Charles Simmer and create a Triple Crown 2.0, Pat Quinn decided to pair Robitaille with Dionne and captain Dave Taylor with Jimmy Carson, allowing 2 rookies with 2 vets to establish 2 scoring lines. And it didn't take long to see how it could work out. "I can still hear myself yelling, 'Marcel!'" Robitaille told the LA Times. "He threw the puck to me in front of the net, and I tipped it in. I was so excited." Indeed, on October 9th, 1986, both Luc Robitaille and Jimmy Carson debuted for the Kings in the home opener against the St. Louis Blues. Luc Robitaille scored on his first shot, with Marcel Dionne assisting, recording his 1600th point in the process. Jimmy Carson assisted on Dave Taylor's goal later in the night. Although the results weren't evident in the team's record to start the season, what was evident is the LA Kings could light the lamp again. Jimmy Carson and Luc Robitaille, along with fellow rookie defenseman Steve Duchesne, jolted the attack to tops in the league, creating tremendous scoring depth with Dionne and Taylor, as well as Bernie Nichols and Jim Fox. For the majority of the season, 20-year-old Luc Robitaille and 18-year-old Jimmy Carson scored over or at a point-per-game pace, creating internal competition for the Calder Trophy. "You had 2 offensive guys who fed off one another in Luc and Jimmy," said Kings center Bernie Nichols. "It wasn't necessarily a competition, but each wanted to outdo the other in a good way, and it was great for us." However, on March 10, 1987, the unthinkable happened. After requesting a trade, LA Kings icon Marcel Dionne was dealt to the New York Rangers. While many thought the request came from Dionne's frustration with the team's lack of success, it was also a contract dispute like his old Triple Crown linemate Charles Simmer had experienced a few years earlier. The legendary scorer used a trade request as a negotiating tactic for a new contract. Instead, general manager Roger Vachon granted the request and phoned Rangers GM, hockey legend Phil Esposito. Kings captain Dave Taylor would tell the LA Times that Dionne was not happy with his contract negotiations. He tried to renegotiate his contract and add some years, Taylor said. The Kings were hesitant. He told me, "I think I can still do the job. I want to play more the next year." Dionne was quoted by the Associated Press as saying of the trade, "It was a combination of a few things. I talked with the GM to renegotiate and I could see that I was struggling a lot in the last couple of months. I didn't think I was going to get any place, so that's why the trade happened. I'm still surprised that it all happened, but sometimes you have to stand up for what you believe, and I think it's time for me to go." To put into perspective what Marcel Dionne meant to the Kings at the time of the trade, he led the team in points 9 out of the previous 11 seasons, was the franchise leader in points, goals, assists, and in games played. And in terms of historical perspective, he was the second all-time scorer in NHL history with 1,673 points, second only to Mr. Hockey, Gordie Howe. It was a seismic shift for the NHL, the franchise, and the lineup. Marcel Dionne's final stat line with the Kings was 24 goals and 74 points in only 67 games. Hugely impressive totals at 35 years old. At the time of the trade, Dionne led the Kings in assists, and more importantly for the future, helped guide Luc Robitaille to 36 goals, assisting on 22 of them.
To all the fans, I would like to thank you very much. It's been 12 wonderful years. Thank you.
Undoubtedly, Kings management felt comfortable enough with the dynamite debuts of Jimmy Carson and Luc Robitaille to hand over the keys to the castle. Jimmy Carson finished the 86-87 season third in Calder voting, scoring 37 goals, the fourth highest ever for an 18-year-old, and 79 points. Luc Robitaille shocked everyone, leading the Kings with 45 goals and 84 points, becoming the first and only King to secure the Calder Trophy. With both skaters making the All-Rookie team, along with teammate Steve Duchesne, marking the only time in NHL history one team had 3 players voted on the All-Rookie team, it was clear LA had sunny days ahead. With an unfortunate trade of a franchise icon, now Tinseltown and the hockey world was California dreaming at what Carson and Lucky Luke could do on the same line. While changes were occurring on the ice to start the 87-88 season with the turning of the page on Marcel Dionne, things also shifted off the ice, with team owner Jerry Buss selling his majority stake in the franchise to coin collector Bruce McNall. More on him a bit later. On the ice, the forum was buzzing to see what their prized young gems could do with full reign of the Hollywood hockey kingdom. Head coach Mike Murphy, who took over for Pat Quinn, lined up Luc Robitaille on the left, Dave Taylor on the right, and Jimmy Carson in the middle. It was officially time for Carson, now 19, and Luc Robitaille, now 21, to take over where Charlie Simmer and Marcel Dionne left off. Maybe not so fast. In Game 1, at home against the former dynastic New York Islanders, the new top line managed only 3 shots on goal, 2 of those by Dave Taylor, and 0 points with a -6 in a 4-1 loss. The Crown Princes played more like the embarrassing Barons. Obviously, this is just one game in a very long season, and no one will overreact, right? Wrong. General manager Roger Vachon set up the Robitaille-Carson-Taylor line before Game 2. The chemistry is not as good as we thought it would be, and head coach Mike Murphy hinted some line shuffling was needed. Thus, in just Game 2 of the season against the St. Louis Blues, Jimmy Carson opened the game centering Dave Tiger Williams and Sean McKenna. Not exactly the production line there. Assuming the former second overall pick was motivated by the shuffling, Jimmy Carson scored 42 seconds into the game, off an assist by Steve Duchesne. When Luc Robitaille and Dave Taylor came on for their shift, Jimmy Carson stayed on and scored again 50 seconds later with an assist from Robitaille. Later in the second period, Jimmy Carson became the youngest King in history to record a hat trick, with assists from Luc Robitaille and Dave Taylor. After that first shift, the trio remained together the entire game and the rest of the season, and they never looked back. Including the hat trick, Jimmy Carson finished the month of October scoring 9 goals and 13 points in 10 games, with Luc Robitaille playing a more playmaking role with 10 assists and 13 points. In November, the trio got even hotter. Lucky Luc would join in on the scoring barrage with 9 goals of his own and 21 points in only 14 games, while Jimmy Carson contributed another 9-goal month, along with 22 points in 13 games. Captain Dave Taylor kept up with his 2 electric line mates with 12 points in the same 13 contests. In a town of movie stars, the Kings Princes put on a dazzling offensive display that rivaled some of the league's most gifted scorers, all while not being old enough to rent a car. However, a lot like Marcel Dion experienced in the purple and yellow, the nightly scoring brilliance didn't particularly result in many wins. This was evident in December, as both Robitaille and Carson performed at a point-per-game clip, specifically Luc scoring 11 goals to catch up to his center. The Kings just didn't register many victories, including a dreadful 7-game losing streak. The struggles would lead to a coaching change, with Robbie Ftorek coming in to try and right the ship. With a record of 11, 24, and 4 by the new year, the Kings had their work cut out to salvage the season, and more specifically salvage what was quickly becoming a historic performance by their first line.
King organization feels that through time, as they build around young stars like Luc Robitaille and Jimmy Carson, the wins will come fast and furious. But for now, Carson and Robitaille are the whole show in Tinseltown.
In January, Robbie Ftorek, despite Dave Taylor missing 2 weeks with an injury, stabilized the Kings and finished 500 for the month. In the final 26 games, LA finished 12, 11, and 3, amazingly good enough to clinch a playoff berth. And in those same 26 games, Carson and Robitaille would go nuclear on the NHL. Luc Robitaille, to cap off his sophomore season, established himself as the premier left winger in the entire league, scoring an incredible 22 goals and 46 points in the final 26 games, including a 6-game goal-scoring streak to end the season with an insane 10 goals and 19 points in that span. Jimmy Carson in those same 26 games registered an equally impressive 24 goals and 41 points. And not to be forgotten, Dave Taylor had his best stretch of the season, contributing 28 points. La La Land was officially going gaga for Robitaille and Carson.
A current 10-game point-scoring streak, 22 goals in his last 23 games, so he has really put on a charge in the last 2 months. 450 goals, which he got earlier tonight.
An especially fun night came on March 30th against their eventual first-round playoff matchup, the powerhouse Calgary Flames, where in a 9-7 victory, Robitaille and Carson combined for 12 points. Carson, coming off a hat trick the previous game, scored 4 more on this night. While the Flames exacted revenge in the playoffs, beating the Kings in 5 for another disappointing postseason, it was still an astonishing performance by the Kings' top line. 31-year-old Dave Taylor showed he could still play at a high level, even if his prime 100-point power forward days were behind him. The former 210th overall pick, and you thought Robitaille was late at 171, ended the year with 67 points in 68 games, along with a healthy 129 penalty minutes. On the other wing, Luc Robitaille ensured his rookie campaign was anything but lucky, leading the Kings once again in points, as well as finishing top 5 in the NHL in both goals with 53 and points with 111. He was also voted first All-Star at left wing, his first of 4 consecutive selections at the position. Jimmy Carson continued his historic teenage years, leading the Kings in goals and finishing 3rd in the NHL, lighting the lamp 55 times, the most ever by a teenager. His 107 points would be good enough for 8th in the league, a 28-point jump from his rookie year. Carson's combined 92 goals represented the most in NHL history by a teenager, and the 55 goals also represented at the time the most ever by an American-born player, later tied by Kevin Stevens and broken by Austin Matthews. The Los Angeles Kings in the 1987-88 season had 2 players on the same line, under the age of 22, finished top 5 in goals and top 10 in points, alongside such names as Mario Lemieux, Marc Messier, Peter Stastny, and the great one, Wayne Gretzky.
The LA Kings have been in business 20 years on the West Coast. They've never been a serious threat in the playoffs, but with players like Robitaille and Carson and a lot of defensive help over the next couple of years, they just may be. Who knows?
Although it had not resulted in postseason success, it was without a doubt the type of youthful superstar production that franchises dream to have as building blocks. Unfortunately, it's also the type of youthful superstar production that other teams would covet, especially if a potential blockbuster trade could interest a new owner who wanted to make a splash in the City of Angels. A trade to make headlines that even Hollywood couldn't ignore. Not just any trade, the biggest trade in sports history.
With mixed emotions, a heavy heart for our community and our hockey club, but I guess with delight and sincere best wishes for Wayne Gretzky, that I announce, and I guess more important, confirm that the Edmonton Oilers have agreed to trade Wayne Gretzky to Los Angeles.
Bruce McNall shockingly landed the greatest player of all time, Wayne Gretzky, a megastar to bring mainstream attention to the Kings and put them at the center of the sports world, while making Jimmy Carson an Edmonton Oiler, thus breaking up the two princes of LA after just one magical season together as a line couple.